What is against all odds talks? Against all odds talks are brought to you by the Betty Ogiel Foundation, whose mission is to inspire hope and vision is to transform life. So against all odds talks are aimed to inspire hope and transform lives while building resilience. And that is why we invite different speakers to share with us from their personal stories and also from their knowledge. So the Betty O'Gale Foundation supports education. We sponsor vulnerable kids to attend school, mentorship. We have a blessed and outreach, and yes, we have against all odds foundation. It is a platform for giving back. If you have a gift of giving back, so you can join us. This is the part of our current beneficiaries. Then the talks before they went virtual. Claire, you can see yourself in the photos. I am sure a number of you can see themselves in the photos. Mentorships, we bless the I have a special part in my heart for one, widows who have children, because I was I was brought up by a widow and single women who cannot afford to look after their children. So that is why we collect items and we give to the needy. So that in short is what the foundation does. This was Eastern Uganda. Charity begins at home. So this is near my village, actually next to my home in the village. Our target this year is to raise $10,000 to support more vulnerable kids, to hold more inspirational talks, and to be able to reach more widows and women, women who cannot raise their kids. So Oltesh, who is Oltesh? He is a Toastmasters club member. He is a TED speaker and a coach. He is a John Maxwell coach, speaker, and a trainer. He works currently for African Development Bank in South Africa. He is a Maasai by tribe and a son from a happy family, a husband to 1 wife, a father to 3 daughters. Finally, God has answered my prayer. Oltesh, I have been praying for a person who has 3 beautiful daughters. And finally, God has answered my prayer today. I know after these talks, will come up with a plan. I want to start paying diary in installments. He is Oltesh is a brother to 6 siblings, an uncle to 300 nieces and nephews. Oltesh amused me. He bolded, he put this in bold, meaning that I was not to miss the 300 nieces and nephews. Oltesh is a very qualified speaker, and he holds masters. I don't want to go into the details of his academic and a professional background. But here, Oltesh is the Against All Odds audience add value to us. And together, let's put our hands in the chat, show Oltesh some love, and as he starts to speak to us. Karibu sana, ndugu.
Thank you very much, Betty. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. We can.
Wonderful, wonderful. I wish, I always like being in the room with people. We can high five, we can hug, even during these times of the COVID. But unfortunately, it is not possible. However, let me say this, Betty, and everyone in the audience. I'm honored, I'm privileged, I'm so happy to spend this evening with you. And by the way, I have a lot of friends in Kampala, besides Betty and Rosette. I always like visiting Uganda and Kampala for that matter. In fact, I just like the food. I like the food. It just feels home when I visit Uganda. So I'm so happy to be here this evening. Now, because we cannot see each other, I mean, we cannot be in the same room, can you just give us a high five? Just give a screen high five. You can press that button or you can just say high five, and that for me will be more than enough. Right, I'm so happy, and thank you, Rosette and Betty, for organizing this. And by the way, this is just for the benefit of the audience. Rosette and Betty are 2 wonderful people. I know how much difference, I know how much work you guys are doing, and keep doing, because we can only change lives if we change those that are around us, if we change ourselves inside, and what you're doing is quite an amazing job. And one thing that I would just like everyone to remember today is you don't really need to have much. You don't need to have more than disposable resources for you to be able to help. There are people who are dreaming, there are people who are praying to be where you are. So just to remind you that you are enough, you're more than enough, and you don't need anything else beyond what you have. However, it does not mean that you should not work hard. Of course, you need to work hard. And this is why today we're going to talk about failing forward. Betty, when you shared this title with me, it reminded me of my now 17 years old daughter. When she was about 10 months, and when she took her first step, I remember till this day. It was like it happened just a few minutes ago. And when she took that first step, and we were all clapping, she went down. And then she stood up and took another step. And then she was down. And then she stood up. And then she took the third step. And again, she was down. And the fourth step, she was down. The fifth step, she was down. In fact, it took like half an hour. And I was just watching this scene as it evolved. And she was crying, but Janice would not sit down. She just kept moving and falling, moving and falling. But at the end, I realized one thing that all of you might have probably seen. I realized that much as Janice was falling down, she was moving forward. So she started, for example, here. And by the time she was done with this falling down, she was somewhere there. And this is just a reminder for all of us this evening that much as you're falling down, in fact, you're moving forward. So it is really, really important that you don't give up. And the challenge we have as adults is we only ask once, or maybe twice, or maybe 3 times. And when they say no, you give up. But did they really mean no? I have a friend, his name is Abel. And Abel gave me a story when he was in high school. He had this girl, and she, it was just a crush. And one day he decided to approach her, and she said no. And Abel gave up. And after several years, Abel met this girl, and he says, "Do you know what? I remember you said no to me." And do you know what that lady, now a lady, do you know what she said? She said, "You gave up too soon, too easily. In fact, if you would have come 3 or 4 times, I would have said yes." Now, let me just remind you, if someone says no today, it might not really mean no. It might possibly be it is not possible today, or it might be it is not possible now. So normally, if someone says yes or says no, why don't you follow it up? When or how? Or what does it take for you to say yes, for example? And this is why it is really important for us to start now adapting this philosophy of failing forward, because that's where the magic is. You might be asking yourself, why do we need to talk about failure? Talking about failure is really, really important, because that's where we spend a lot of our time. In fact, we fail more than succeeding. If I start enumerating the failures that I had in life, we will spend the entire evening. I failed in class 3. I failed in my primary. I failed my dissertation. I failed in fact, the job interviews that I succeeded compared to the job interviews that I failed, I had more failure than success. I failed in so many areas. But what I realized is, in the process of failing, I was either growing or I was learning. One of my mentors, Brian Tracy, did sales, and he told me that he was teaching his daughter how to do business. And he says he would encourage her to go and knock on doors and come back with at least 10 people saying no. So she was asked to to knock a door, and when she gets a no, that's one, number two, number three, up to 10 people. And then she would come and report to the dad. And in fact, this is how now this girl grew up, and then she did very well in sales. I would therefore encourage you to learn how to fail, but also to learn how to take no. And just remember that it is not personal, that's life. The other thing is, if this was a piece of cake, and there's a big gap here in the middle, and you're here, the gap between that piece of cake and you is failure. Now, if you're able to cross that gap, then that's the only way for you to succeed. That is the only way for you to enjoy that cake. And therefore, don't take failure personally. Just remember that that is the bridge that you need to cross. And when you cross that bridge, two things will happen. You will either learn or you will succeed and enjoy the fruits that you have been working so hard to. And this is why today we're talking about failing forward, because this is what that happens every day. The other thing that you need to remember is, as far as failure is concerned, everybody fails. I remember in 1998, I was the happiest man, I would say, in the planet. I had this girlfriend that I had been dating for a year. And it was 1998, at around January, that we made a decision that we will get married. I was happy. I was smitten. I was over the moon. We even started planning our wedding. I even started saving the money for the wedding. And at around March there, I said, but sweetie, you know, according to the African culture, I need to meet your parents. And she said, no problem. We will organize for that. But you need to wait a little bit. And I said, no problem. You see, when you're in love, you just say yes to everything that she or he says. I waited. After a month, I went back and I said, now, do you think we can go? Is it the right time to see your parents? And she said, Oltesh, why are you in such a rush? You know, you need to allow this love to marinate, to simmer a little bit. And I waited. When I went back, she said, Oltesh, I'm sorry, I did not see that coming. I'm sorry. It will not happen. That day, I felt like I should have been hit by a truck. Rejection is not a good thing. It was like I was dropped like a hot potato. I lost appetite. I lost my cool. And this went on for like 3 months. I was really, really down. And this is someone that if I was a hotel with 1,000 rooms, she was occupying all those rooms. This is how much I had given myself to her. It affected me. But did I stay there? No, I did not stay. Am I happy today? Yes. And by the way, we are friends. But I'd forgiven her, and that story is behind me. So everybody fails. You can be heartbroken. You can lose money. You can lose your property. You can go through the challenges that Betty has been sharing with us all this time, including going through an accident, losing speech, but she did not stay there. And if you fail, it is basically part of the game, and you're not alone. Everybody fails. The other thing is, no one enjoys it. We cannot enjoy failure. It is painful. But let me tell you one thing, and it reminds me of about 4 years ago when I used to live and work in Nairobi. when I was stopped by a traffic police, and I parked my car at the police station, and we were put in this small, bus. They call them matatu. And in Kenya, if they catch you on a traffic offense, it's just a bad experience. We were put in a cell for like 6-7 hours, and they mixed us with all kinds of criminals. It was a painful process. And let me say this, while we're in that small cell that had more than 100 people, I did not enjoy it. I did not like it. And I can tell you, it was just an experience that I will never, ever forget. And that's not the only one. There are several experiences that I had. And let me also encourage you, and let me remind you that if we open the chat, and if anyone is ready to speak up, I do know that each and every one of you have gone through failure. And not only that, they did not enjoy it. And if you want to spend a minute or two just to share the failure that you experienced and the pain that you went through, please raise your hand, and then we will unmute you so that we can encourage each other. And while you're gathering your thoughts, I want to tell you the third one. Failure is your stepping stone. And the best way to address failure is to learn from it. And this is very, very important. What you need to do is, if you fail, try to fail. If you have ever seen, we have these insects, and the one that I remember most is a cockroach. That sometimes a cockroach, when they fall on their back. And what happens is, when they fall on their back, it's so difficult for them to stand because they're on their back. It is therefore important for us as human beings, as intelligent creatures, that whenever you experience failure, try and fall forward. Because, by the way, if you fall forward, that means you would have made a mistake. So what does that mean? Try and learn from that failure. Try and establish, why did I fail? Try and not give up. Try and consult. Try and engage with yourself or with your peers to actually find out, why did this happen? How did this happen? How can I learn from this? It is therefore important. And through that process, this is why we talk about failing forward. The other thing that you might need to, Betty, do we have anyone who wants to share their painful experience? Okay, no problem. Yes?
No one yet.
No problem. We will keep going, and when they're ready, you let me know. I'll stop, and then we can hear.
Okay.
I would also like to share something else about failure. And this is a time when I was in primary school and I used to play football. And I remember I did not miss a single practice match for 7 years. I would show up in the pitch when it is time for our team to play. I did not miss any competition. But for 7 years, and this happened in several practice and matches, I would run around the pitch for 90 minutes, sometimes for 120 minutes, touch the ball, not even once. I know most of you might be wondering, why did they include me in the football match? In fact, if you ask me, I still don't know till today. But I think maybe it's because we only had 11 boys in our class. So probably there was no choice. I did terribly in football. For 7 years, I did not score a single goal. And I considered myself a failure. But I remember 2 weeks before graduation, we had to play against our rivals, the neighboring school. And that day we all had our uniform. We were excited. We were energetic. And I could see that trophy till today shining. And we couldn't wait to start the match. And when that kickoff whistle blew, we were right in the pitch. And half an hour into the match, there was no goal. It was 0-0. 45 minutes, it was still 0-0. 80 minutes, it was still 0-0. And I remember on the 89th minute, I was tired, I was exhausted, I was completely wiped out. And I just decided to relax because I knew the final whistle was going to blow. But then I saw something. I could see my colleague, my teammate Solo dribbling the ball, and he passed the first opponent, the second opponent, the third opponent, and then he hit that ball. And when he hit the ball, much as I was not very good in football, I was good in math. Because when I saw that ball rolling, I observed that that ball was not going to hit the goalpost. It was going to hit me. And when that ball hit me, I diverted that ball and it went straight to the goalpost. And that's how I scored my first and ever goal in my entire 7 years in primary school. I was declared the best footballer of the year, though for just one night. And I want to remind you today that failure is not necessarily failure. As long as you move forward, it is actually a journey to getting to you achieving your goals and the purpose in life. I would therefore encourage you, much as you're failing, wake up and dress up and show up day in, day out, because failure is the spice you need. It's the icing you need on top of that cake for you to be able to celebrate life.
Oltesh.
Yes.
I have a hand up.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Chris?
Can you unmute?
Yes. Christine.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Oltesh. I've been challenged by your story, and it just reminded me when I was a first year at university, my aspiration was to become a social worker. But when I got there, I was very disappointed that because I did not score a B in economics, I scored a principal C. I was not given social work and social administration, and therefore I was given a combination of Bachelor of Arts with arts, but I opted to do sociology and I majored in sociology. And I promised myself that I'm going to be able to still do the kind of work that a social worker would have done. And I'm not going to let this lie ahead of me. And indeed it did that. And I pursued a thriving career where I met some of the people who had done social work, and some of them were doing badly compared to myself. And that has given me an encouragement that, yes, at that time, I didn't know that I was falling forward, but I did, and I'm glad about the results that I achieved at the end of the day. Thank you.
A clap for Christine. Christine, thank you so much for sharing. And I like that background. One day when I come to Kampala, I would like to sit on that dining table. And by the way, I can see the neighbor on your left. Please say hi.
Hi, you're saying hi to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christine. Betty, do you have another hand?
Let me check. It seems they are still thinking and gathering the courage.
Please don't go back with that story. Did you just hear from Christine? If you take that story back home, I'll find you. Okay. Now, the other point that I would like to talk about is just try to make failure your friend. I remember, and Betty mentioned about it when we met in Kampala a few years ago. That was 2019. I was competing for an international competition. And this competition, it was not my first time. I think it was my third year competing. So the first time I was kicked out at round 2. The second time I was kicked out at round 3, yes. And the third time I remember, I was told that you won, but the other guy was better than you, so he took the trophy home. I'm still processing how was it possible that I won, but somebody else took the trophy. But yes, I did not make it in simple terms. So it happened 3 times. So when I was on my way to Kampala, flying from Nairobi, I promised myself one thing. I said I tried 3 times and I failed. But this time, I will create my own failure. I'll create my own winning criteria. And if I fail by the standards of the international competition, at least I need to succeed in my own terms. Do you know what I was doing? I was making friends with failure. So I accepted my failure before showing up for the competition. So I decided that 3 things will happen. Number 1, I will go there, take that stage, and give my best, give 100% of what I have. So that was 1. Number 2, I will go on stage and share the message that I feel will help people who will be listening to me, whether I win or not. And number 3, I said, let me just go there, be myself, and just share. When I got on stage, that's exactly what I did. I gave 100% of the message that I had. I shared the message that I believed would help the audience. And number 3, I was on stage for 7 minutes. I survived. And when that was done, I declared myself a winner. And I remember after dinner, it was now time to announce the winners. So number 3 was announced. I remember it was a lady from Uganda. Then number 2 was announced. And then we were all waiting. Who is going to be number 1? And do you know what happened? It was me. Not only did I surprise myself, but I realized that embracing failure, making friends with failure would actually allow you to succeed. And I would therefore like to encourage you today and remind each and everyone And I know, and Betty, you shared with me not really the profile, but I have an idea of the audience that we have in the room today. And I know that each and every one of you is a star, is a celebrity in your own area of expertise. That one, I know 100% you're doing great. But I also know that as human beings, when you stop growing, that's when you start going down. I know that as human beings, you still want to grow, maybe in finances, maybe in a relationship. It could be spirituality. It could be any of those. Maybe you just want to lose a few kilos or even put a few kilos. It could be any of those. There's one area that you probably want to improve. Now, if that is true, the best way to do that is to make friends with failure. And if you're so scared, convert that, change that failure, put your own definition of failure. And when you win, or your own definition of success, when you win those, I can tell you, even if you fail, you would have moved forward. Betty, do we have another hand before I go, before I move on?
Not yet.
All right. Now, I would like to finish by saying this, and this is really, really important. I just feel that this is something that we need to critically think about. And I did mention that when I started. And when I logged in, Rosette mentioned it, and Betty mentioned it. And she says this is the cornerstone of her foundation. There was this blind man that was walking down a street, and he got to an intersection where he wanted to cross the road. And the cars were just zooming by. Vroom, 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 vroom. And then he didn't know, how am I going to cross the road safely? And he just stood there, waiting for a good Samaritan to show up. And then there was a tap on his shoulder. And he said, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me cross the road?" And the other voice answered, "Yes." He held his hand and they crossed the road safely. What the blind man did not know is the man who helped him to cross the road was also blind. It is possible that you're blind in some areas. I'm also blind in some areas. Rosette is blind in some areas. Christine is blind in some areas. Betty is blind in some areas. That does not mean that you cannot help a blind person to find their way. In other words, you don't need to be a millionaire or a billionaire or a trillionaire for you to help someone. You don't need to have abundance and excess for you to help and change someone. That is the best way to fail forward. If you can only take time and take the courage and kick that fear of failing by helping others, I can tell you that is the best way to fail forward. You might be thinking, doubting yourself, but how can I help others while I'm a failure? I can tell you, I've been lifted by people who were on the ground because they had failed. I have also lifted people while trying to raise up why I had failed. I would therefore like to remind each and every one of us today, and I'm saying us because I don't want to say that I'm doing any better. I'm also in that journey of failing, but failing forward. And let us therefore work together by failing forward through learning from our mistakes, failing forward by waking up, dressing up, and showing up, failing forward by helping those who need the most.
Betty, can I ask you to please conduct the meeting? We are on load shedding. I'll do my very best, but if I get off, just please. Understand and know that if we also. So thank you very much. If I can just some of the comments that came through. People thanked you, but I saw one person, I think it was Philip, who said, interesting presenter. He uses personal stories to put across his point. So thank you so much, Oltesh, for using those stories. And one good thing about personal stories is that you never forget them. You never forget where you heard the story and the lesson that you learned from the story. So thank you so much for sharing those personal stories with us. And thank you for taking time to remind us that in life, we all fail. But when you fail, what you do after the fall is what matters. Are you going to choose to remain down, or are you going to use it, like Oltesh has said, a learning point in life to help you, to propel you to the next move that you have to do? And thank you, Christine, also for sharing your personal story, just to reinforce what it was that we were learning. So Betty, I'll try. I'm on a phone, so I don't know how I'm going to manage this, but I'll try to conduct the question and answer session. So it's now, the greatest inventions were made, okay. So it's now time for questions and answers. So please feel free to ask your question and let us learn from each other. Oh, wow, there's a very interesting comment that has come through. Let me try and read it from Winfred. So Winfred Bavidie says, this is amazing. I'm blind, but I have a lot to offer someone. This is very encouraging. I had an appointment and the doctor didn't show up. I'm happy the appointment didn't take place. So Oltesh, that is to you. Another person says, very informative message. The greatest inventions were made by people who didn't give up after failing. That is from Philip. Thank you, I will keep showing up, says Barbara. Anche Yune says, thank you so much, Oltesh. Indeed, we have a lot to offer in our blindness. Blessings. Catherine Matthew says, thank you, Oltesh. I've enjoyed your talk. Christine says, thank you so much, Oltesh. You've spoken from your heart. Henry Chivirige said, I like the speaker who is real. This is so practical and real. Yes. So thank you, everyone, for clapping. Ruth says, I wish I had known this platform exists. I'm really touched. Great lessons from real experiences. So Oltesh, are you ready? You have your first question, and it's coming from Philip. And Philip wants to know, how can one overcome doubt and fear?
I'm more than ready, Rosette. And
yes,
Philip,
so that's your first question. How do you overcome doubt and fear?
thank you, Philip. That's a great question. And fear, doubt is part of our DNA. It will never go away. And whenever you go into a new area, you will experience it. But the beauty of a human being is we are very resilient. I have never seen a creature that is so resilient like a human being. And the beauty again is that is also part of our DNA. Do it anyway. Do it afraid. Do it with all the doubt that you have. I remember English is not my first language. English is like my third language. I went to school when I spoke only Maasai. And I went to school and the second language was Kiswahili. Coming from Tanzania, we do use Kiswahili a lot. So English was my third language. And in 2018, I wanted to compete for an international, not an East African, but a Toastmasters international competition. And I remember someone making a comment saying, yeah, unfortunately, the accent and the language, it depends on his background of this language. So this is a problem that maybe we will not be able to solve because of his background. And therefore they said that we cannot really help him. But do you know what happened? That very year, that very speech where people were talking about, yes, we cannot help him, English is not his first language. Do you know what? That very speech won the world championship. I was number 3 for the entire world. Did I doubt myself? Yes. Did that comment discourage me? Yes. Did I stop? No, I did not stop. So doubt will always be there. That fear of taking the next step is always going to be there. But let me tell you, let your purpose override all the doubts and all the fears. But because we are talking about failing forward today, and given that this foundation is about making the difference, let me say this, and this is very, very important. Your doubts and your fear should not prevent you from making a difference. You could save someone's life. Maybe that was the purpose of you being here. You're doing a disservice to yourself and to humanity if you allow fear to prevent you from doing whatever it is that you want to do. Doubt, fear, yes. Do I still doubt and fear myself? Yes, but I do it anyway. And Philip and everyone who's here today, fear will never stop. Doubt will never stop. But I can tell you, we need to move on. We need to move forward. We need to make a difference. Do it afraid. Back to you, Rosette.
Okay. I think Rosette is having a challenge, like she told us. Thank you, Oltesh. Very interesting insights. Rosette, if you can hear me, you need to unmute yourself. But another question which came to my inbox directly is a participant is saying, isn't there a risk of resigning to a situation when you make friends with the failure, accepting it as you are not? Yes.
That's again another very good question. The thing is, you remember when I talked about my daughter when she was 10 months. She made friends with failure. She did not fear falling down. She did not fear the pain or being hurt or getting those bruises because she made friends with failure. People are afraid of failure. Now, when you're afraid of something, what do? You tend to go away from it. You don't work towards it. And therefore, if you resign to that failure, for example, if when I was going for that competition, if I did not make friends with failure, what would I have done? I would have said, I'm not going to compete. I would have said, I'm not going there. And by the way, I know of people who would go get a negative experience the first time, and they will never, ever go back. I remember in 2013, yes, I was invited, my family and I were invited to a friend. I would say it was kind of a pool party. And I remember when we got there, I already had my swimming shorts on, and my two daughters were there, my wife and our nanny. And being a man, I always like leading by examples, right? But that day I was wrong. So I decided to jump to the deepest part of the pool, yet I didn't know how to swim. And the next thing I remember is I was just drinking cups of water, a cup after another and a cup after another. And I could see the world was turning round and round and round. And I remember it was our nanny that saved me that day, right? From drowning, right? Yeah. And yeah, she got a pay rise, right? Yes, her salary went up a little bit. Now, did that experience discourage me from learning how to swim? No. In fact, I stopped for a few years, but I started, last year. I started. And now I can swim, right? And I can float. I'm not an expert yet, but at least I can float. So it does happen. I tried learning how to ride a bicycle. That time I was in London, and I remember I nearly got into a pond in one of the parks in London, and I gave up. But in 2019, it was in December, I said, before this year end, and it was one of my New Year's resolution, I said, I'm going to learn how to ride a bike. I bought a bike. And on the 29th of December, 2019, I woke up at around 5 a.m. in the morning. It was dark. There was no one on the street. And I looked for that sloping road, and I mounted the bike. And I balanced, and I started riding the bike. And I can tell you, because I was ready to fail, I made friends with failure. That very day, I rode 6 kilometers.
Wow.
That very day. And I continued riding. I still have the bike. And what is more interesting, and let me tell you how you can use failure to help others. What is very interesting, my wife bought a bike for our 6-year-old daughter. And my wife is, rides bike. She's very good actually. And when she started teaching our daughter to ride a bike, I don't know, it just didn't work. It didn't work. And I remember I just said, okay, I'm not as good in riding, but just allow me to help her. It took me 3 days, and my daughter started riding a bike because I knew the pain. I knew what it takes to fail, what it takes to fall. And by the way, much as I was riding this bike, whenever I see a narrow road and there is a post there, an electric post or a lamp post, and I look at that, I always hit that post. And I again learned that if there's a problem, don't look at the problem, but face, to try to see how can I address this problem. So basically, when I met friends, I said, okay, I don't mind. Let me fall, let me get bruises, but I need to learn how to ride. And today, we are riding buddies with my 6-year-old daughter. By the way, she rides very well, much as she suffered a lot of bruises. But yes, we failed forward, and today we can ride. Back to you, Betty.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Very well.
Oltesh, you're just leaving us in stitches. Hello?
We can
Yes.
hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, I think, okay, I can actually see there are some comments here from Nomugisha. Thank you, Nomugisha, for your comment. Yes, go ahead,
to read some things in the chat, but my chat is not.
Okay. Okay. It is official. Rosette has network issues, like she informed us already. So Oltesh, like Rosette said, you are leaving us in his stitches. And yes, thank you for answering that question. You can see the chat, Oltesh?
Yes, I can see. So let me just respond to this one.
Yes.
We have, thank you, Christine, for the comment. Thank you, Philip, for the feedback. Thank you, Mugisha. And then Betty, all right, you're talking to Viola. And then there's a comment here from Henry. And Henry says, I've discovered that you don't only fear failure, you also don't fear sharing your failure. And he says, most people can't share those stories. We mostly want to prove how great we are. Thank you, Henry. Let me say this. By sharing, by the way, I like telling stories, and how I just like to share my failures more, because it teaches and it encourages us others that failure is part of life. And so that's the reason. I think there was a question on attitude. I'm trying to pull that out. Let me see. Yes, this is from Philip. He says, how does attitude affect response to failure? Okay. Apparently, attitude is everything when it comes to failure. I cannot even emphasize, but in life, we cannot sometimes determine, we cannot change, we cannot influence what happens to us. However, we can, and we have the control of deciding how we react to what happens to us. And that's where the difference comes as far as failure is concerned. One, don't take a failure personally. Number two, it's part of life. But number three, how about embracing it? How about learning from it? When I decided to speak, and then, by the way, I did not share with you, but my purpose in life is to impact as many people and as many lives as possible. And that is a dream. It's an epiphany that I got in 2011. But I realized that because I was born an introvert, I was born in a community which is purely, it's just that the elders, we need to respect the elders, from the teacher to your parents, to neighbors, anyone. So we were not really encouraged to kind of have that kind of ping pong sort of conversation. So it was a yes, amen, yes, we will do it. The conversation that I had was with my dad was, he was either giving me orders or he was reprimanding me. And it was mostly a one-way communication. And therefore, growing up, I did not really have the opportunity to express myself. So I doubted myself and I did not believe in myself. I did not even believe that anyone would ever look up to me. But there was this dream that kept hitting my mind, that you need to go out, make a difference, impact people. And in 2011, I made a decision. But then there was a problem. How do I do it? I cannot speak. Given my background, I cannot do it. So the first thing that I did is I said, I need money, I need to make a lot of money, and I need to be able to speak. I've not made a lot of money yet, but I learned how to speak. And I remember the first, so I trained with John Maxwell, I trained with Toastmasters, I trained with several different organizations. And I remember when I took stage the first time, it was a disaster. Because I got into a room which had like 100 people. And when I got on stage, people were looking up and waiting to hear from me. But as I continued speaking, I realized that I was giving what I would call a moving speech. I call it a moving speech because as I continued talking, people were moving, people were getting out of the room. And by the time I finished, there was only one person left, and I asked, so why are you still here? And he said, I'm the next speaker. Did I give up? No. Did I withdraw? No. Did I pack and go? No, I did not pack and go. I stayed. I hanged around. I learned from it. So my attitude is, failure is my best teacher. And therefore, I'll take advantage of all the failures that I experience in life and use those as a ladder to get to where I want to go.
Oltesh,
Let me see if, yes, Betty?
question.
Yes.
I have posted it in the chat.
Okay, I can read it. I can see it.
Yes, yes.
I can see that.
That word is if finances.
Aha.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I like this question. So the question is just for the benefit of the audience. How do you overcome the problem of failing in your plans, projects, because of finances? Yes. When you expect help from a trusted source and the source fails to deliver on the promise, hence derailing you, and you cannot make progress. This is a great question. And I like this one. Now, let me say that no failure and no situation is permanent. In life, I made some financial decisions. I started projects, sank a lot of money, and I did not get anything in return. I invested and I mean quite a lot of money. I'm talking of an amount of money that is equal to my salary for 5 years. Now calculate your salary for 5 years, or let's say your income for 5 years, and all that money goes down the drain because someone was not able to meet their commitment based on what you had agreed. I also made some investment that did not necessarily come into fruition. Did I give up? No. Did I go down? Yes, I went down severally. I remember I came to a point where when I was leaving the house, by that time my wife was not working, and you know, I used to leave the house at 5 a.m. because of traffic jam. But she would always notice that I'm about to leave. I don't know, through telepathy, I don't know, but she somehow, and whenever I was about to leave the house, she would say, honey, and when I hear that, honey, my heart will skip a bit, because she's going to ask for money, because I did not have money that we needed to feed the family. It got to that point, and I kept blaming these people. Why don't they give my money? Why didn't they keep their promise? But do you know what? I kept going. I did not give up. I decided to keep to just say, okay, let me just do it this step by step. I went through brought in some friends to help me engage with these people so that my money would come back. It did not really help much. At some point, I just gave up, and I said, you know what? Let me stop looking at the rear view mirror. Let me just look forward. That was a failure. Let me fail forward and move on. Did that money come back? No. Did I survive? Yes. Am I still alive? Yes. Am I still strong? Yes. And let me tell you, a time will come when you look back at all the losses that you have incurred, as long as you're alive, as long as you're awake, as long as you're energetic and healthy, I can tell you that's all you need. I know that because it happened to me. I know that because there are people today, as we speak, at this very moment, if you go to Mulago Hospital, there are people who have all the money, than so much money than you can ever dream or think about. But I can tell you, they have a problem that money cannot solve. To the extent that we are wailing and complaining and crying about money that we lost. And yet we forget that we have our family, our loved ones are still there, we are still healthy, we can still wake up, dress up, and show up. So let me say this, losses are there, failure is there, and it will never stop. It's not going to stop today or tomorrow. By the way, you will still continue experiencing failures. But what do you do about it? So financial losses, yes, they will be there, but try and learn from those. Like now, it was only yesterday that I was engaging with a financial coach on personal finances, because I think that this is an area that I need to continue growing. All right, let me see. Betty, are you able to see anything, or should I check? I don't think I have any other question on the chat.
Okay.
Please feel free to even ask a question live. Just unmute yourself. And I think we still have a few minutes. So I'm happy to respond to any additional question. Julius, I see you in the house. How are you, Julius?
I'm fine. How are you, Oltesh?
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. And thank you for taking care of this wonderful lady who has brought all of us here together.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for that moving presentation.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate. All right, Betty, it looks like we don't have any more questions.
Yes.
But as I finish, as we wrap up, I want to, at least as I wrap up my session, because I need to jump into another engagement, I want to leave this story with you. And it's a story that my friend Alex, and Alex is from Uganda, has shared with me several years ago. And I will never forget that story. And I don't remember exactly the name, but this is someone who finally, yes, this is someone who was running. I know, Betty, you used to do marathons and relays, right? And this is exactly what this guy used to do. So in primary school, he would show up for a race and he would run. And he was always last. So the first year, primary one, he would run and he would come last and people would laugh at him. Second year, the same, he would run and then he was always last. And that happened in his entire primary school life. When he went to high school, he continued running and he continued taking and holding the tail, being the last. First year of secondary school, the last, second year, but he did not give up. He continued running. University, he continued running and he was still the last. But then something interesting happened. At the university, they were looking for someone who would lead the sports committee. And a lot of people showed up. But out of the crowd that showed up, they were now looking for someone who has been exposed to sports. Who do you think they would elect as the president of that committee? It was him. And finally, the gentleman was employed. I think he was employed by the postal bank or the postal wherever, according to that story. And while at work, I remember in those days, it doesn't happen often nowadays, but they used to have this sports, committee at places of work. And they ran an election and they needed someone who had experience in sports. Who do you think they would look for? Of course, that gentleman. And it went on to him becoming a member of parliament, and they needed someone who would again sit in the sports committee. And who do you think was going to lead that committee? The same gentleman. Now, my question is, did they ask as to whether he was failing in his entire primary school and secondary and high school and university? No. But you can now see how he was failing forward. Therefore, probably some of you might know this gentleman, but I would therefore like to encourage you to use your failure to get to your destination and therefore fail forward. Let's repeat this. Can we all unmute and say fail forward? 1, 2, 3. Please unmute. And then I will count 1, 2, 3. And I want to hear everyone. And I want you to put energy. I want to put you all. 1, 2, 3. Can I hear that?
Fail forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Back to you, Betty.
Oh my God. What a great honor to have you speak to the Against All Odds audience, Oltesh. I am speechless. I am speechless for the second time, but this time I am speechless with a speech. The first time I did not have a speech. Well, there was another question, the last question, which came, I don't know how many minutes you can have with us, but Philip said many times, society prevents us from thinking so big. How can you overcome people's opinions? And that will be the last question I will ask you to answer if you still have time. Otherwise,
yes, I will. Betty, I will not leave this question. Can you just repeat the question?
okay. The question is about people's opinions affecting, preventing you from thinking big. Many times it says, society prevents us from thinking so big. How can you overcome people's opinions? How can you?
That's yes, that's an interesting question. Yes, go ahead.
No,
okay, that's fine. Okay, go ahead, Betty.
Wow.
All right, sorry about that. I think okay, I got the question, Betty.
Okay.
People's opinion, I like that one. I like that one. There are two things that you can do. And this is really, really important. Who is giving you advice? The people are giving you advice. Are they experts? That is one. I know for sure people who give you advice are people who love you. And they're doing it out of love, not out of hatred or envy. They're doing it because they want to save you from the dangers. However, sometimes they are right, sometimes they are wrong. I've been given advice in some instances and I was like, yes, actually that was good advice. I got some advices and I'm like, no, that was not really a good advice to follow. However, people will always give you their opinions. Let me say this, share your big dreams and people will laugh at your big dreams. I'm following a lady, her name is Mel Robbins. And it's just a course that I did. Actually, I did it in January, and it's for free. You can even search for this lady, Mel Robbins, MELRIBBINS, Mel Robbins. Yes, she wrote a book titled 5 Second Rule. Now, one of the things that Mel Robbins said is share your dreams, but don't share your goals or your plans. Your plans are internal. This is your own information. And this is why sometimes if you're working on a certain goal, keep it to yourself because it's true that some people might pull you back. That is one. Number two, you can use their negative opinion as a stepping stone to propel you. You can actually tell them that, okay, don't tell them, but from your heart, that I think I can prove you wrong and go forward. Number three, if your goal is so compelling, if what you want to do is so compelling to the extent that it will overcome all these negative and discouraging opinions, then you will be able to succeed. I would therefore suggest that one, evaluate who's giving you advice. Number two, if you decide to share, just share because you would have made your own decision and use that to move forward. Will you experience some failure? Yes. Is it possible that they were right? It is possible. What could you have done differently? Maybe you could have done more analysis or more research or consulted more experts. But still, even if you did not listen to them and they were right, you will learn from it and then move on. So these are all challenges that you can experience. I remember when I was first employed at the age of 22, the human resource, and Betty, you're in HR, the human resource officer that I met discouraged me from doing supply chain management, which is basically procurement. He said, no, this is not a profession. This is not something that, and that time I was doing part-time classes. But do you know what? I ignored him because I believe this very, very strong. He did not do it in a bad way. He did it based on his knowledge at that time. But let me tell you, this very job that I was being discouraged from taking, it has taken me places. I've been in the same profession for more than 30 years. And I've worked in several countries. I've worked in different organizations. And I'm happy by doing a job that someone told me that, this is not something that you need to do. I don't blame him. I know that he did in good faith based on maybe his exposure at that time. I would therefore say that people would only give you, and this is why you say their opinion. That is not your opinion. Thank you very much, Philip. And back to you, Betty.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much, Oltesh. Saying very thank you is an understatement. I would request the ones who came up with the English language to create another more powerful word to say thank you. But what I would like to do is request anyone in the audience to give a vote of thanks. I always do this because I invited you, Oltesh. So it is obvious that I have to thank you. But when you hear from the people whom you have spoken to and impacted, it makes a big difference. So I would like to request please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
Is Blessing? Can you hear me?
Yes, Barbara.
Well, my name is Barbara. Unfortunately, you're not going to see my face.
Talk about
Tobias, you're the best. You have sorted out my man. At least I'm sorted. My name is failure, making friends with failure. I'm a law enforcement officer. So hearing you speak got the best out of me. Because in law enforcement and in life, if you do not comprehend and you don't face failure, then life will be miserable for you. You've told us how your own stories. Not all of us were able to share our story, but your story comes from your heart. We have stories that people had written some people off, and people say, women, people from this kind of tribe, your height, people are disqualified by weight, People are disqualified by appearance. And yeah, it's really been a good day for me. I'm glad that we are able to come here. So failure, yes, is part of life. We all fail, but failing forward. And from today, we'll keep failing forward. Everybody here has been amazed, has got your passion. We will be failing forward. We'll be learning from the bad things we do and embrace it. And may God give you the courage to reach your dream, and the money will come. Even if you've not yet, you said you didn't, you've not yet got the money, this money will come. And with or without the money, you're making a huge difference. To Betty and Rosette, our growth partners, you are our best allies. Keep us there, and we shall hang in there, and we'll keep showing up despite the odds. I thank you, regards to your family, and enjoy the work you do. Who knows, in this life, maybe we'll see face to face. May God bless you, and thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Thank you. I really appreciate. And I've seen Harriet, I've seen Philip, I've seen, let me just say this, I need to appreciate, there were a lot of very wonderful comments that I've seen. I really appreciate from Philip, from Harriet, from Henry, from Lucy. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome, 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 and be blessed.
Oltesh,
Back to you. Yes.
Oltesh, it seems more people are burning to thank you. Christine, I saw your mic breathing.
Betty, I was just clapping here. I'm smiling ear to ear.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I'm also waiting to meet him in person.
Great.
Thank you. I will one day visit, and I believe that Betty will arrange for us to meet, and you know, I enjoy the nice food that Kampala offers.
Okay.
Yes, you can count on us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Can I say something briefly about? Okay,
yes, Henry, my senior. Go ahead.
Yes, Betty. Wow, I'm sorry I joined in late, but you have demystified this mystery, this animal, this beast failure, that in most cases, we even imagine ourselves failures before we even fail. And I think that is where, because society has only allowed us to judge us by only one word, success. And so even we are looked at as you know, even in areas which don't matter, even trivial mistakes, miscalculations, even to remember something at a particular time, someone has already judged you a failure. And so and different categories of people, you know, and that's why sometimes I admire politicians. They are out there in the open. Drunkards judge them, fair, busy judging them. And so sometimes it even scares some of us to even say, me, I don't want demystified failure, for someone to realize that actually failure, to know that after failing here, I'm going to go back. I've also brought out this aspect of doing it afraid. I think most people think that successful people are not afraid. I've been invited to so many forums to talk to, if about to give way and I fall down, I am afraid. And I speak with all the confidence they see, but deep down in my heart, I'm like, why doesn't something happen and save me from this? So I think we need to go out there and let people know that fear shouldn't stop us. Failure should not stop us. Being afraid is okay. We can do it afraid. We can win afraid. We can be on top afraid. Thank you so much, Oltesh. Thank you so much, Betty. And thank you for the rest of the people who have participated in this. God.
Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you very much. Betty, thank you very much. Sorry, I need to dash out, and thank you for sharing the details. I will for sure send something to support the foundation, not because I have so much, but again, we did say that one way of addressing failure is to give and share whatever small that you have. Thank you very much, Betty.
Thank you so much, Oltesh. You have added great value. You have made us laugh. One of my mentors, my virtual mentors, is Les Brown, who says that when you laugh, you increase your days on earth. And he is the very one who said people's opinion is none of your business. And as we conclude, I would like to share just a few things about failure. I know Oltesh shared most of them. I am just re-emphasizing for those who were not around. So this failure is not final. That is why we have to fail forward. Many of you know my story. You know how I failed in my teens. You know how I failed in my 20s. You know how I failed in my 30s. You probably don't know how I am failing in my 40s. So failure is part and parcel of life. But it is important to know that failure is not final. Failure cannot define you. Just because you failed, it does not make you a failure. Don't confuse yourself from failure. Separate. Number two is failure and success move hand in hand. They move hand in hand. Why and how? When you handle failure well, properly, you manage failure properly, like the speaker has shared with us some personal stories. He handled failure well, and success success showed up in his life. So when you handle failure well, success will be at the corner, and it will surely show up. On the other hand, if you are successful and you handle success badly, failure is guaranteed. It will come because, like I said, they move hand in hand. Number 3, failure is a test. Please do not fail that test. That is why my personal belief is that the real failure is failing to handle failure. If you fail and you fail to handle failure, if you fail and you give up, you have failed to handle failure. And the other thing is what you believe about failure will determine whether you get out of that failure or it will continue staying in and haunting you. I failed to get on government sponsorship at university. It hurt me so much after struggling, after toiling, after selling waragi, after doing everything possible. I failed to get on government sponsorship at Makerere Human University. But did I give up? No, I did not. I found other ways. The other thing is you have to change your attitude about failure. It is okay to fail, and every one of us will fail, whether you want it or not. It is part and parcel of life. So failure, fail, but don't stay there. Don't stay there. Failure is temporary. And finally, it is not what happens to you that matters when you are failing. It is what happens in you that matters. I thank you very much. It is 1 minute past 7. Thank you for coming, and feel free as the Lord speaks to your heart, donate to the foundation so that we continue bringing you these Against All Odds talks as we continue also supporting vulnerable children to attain an education, and widows and orphans and children of single mothers to live a life that defeats human beings. From me to you, I love you as usual. From Against All Odds to you, you matter. From the foundation to you, you are the one which keeps it running. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rosette. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We have come to the end of this session. See you next month at the beginning.